Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth.
Don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors.
Okay, I'm like pretty much 100% sure I now know why Melania Trump got up yesterday and made that big speech, simultaneously denouncing her relationship with Epstein and saying that all of the victims deserves their day in court and to give their full testimonies, which was interesting to say the least. The answer is these tweets by Amanda Ungaro that she was sending out the night before or the morning of April 9th, depending on what time zone you're in, which we will get to that when it comes to her in a minute. But we're gonna come back to these tweets. First of all, who is Amanda Ungaro? Amanda Ungaro is many things, including the ex-wife of Paolo Zampoli. Who is Paolo Zampoli, might you ask? Good question, because he's come up in the news actually multiple times in the past year, either with or without his name, just in like the ways that it was circulating. So I think a lot of people don't realize that all of them were this one guy. Let's get into it. Paolo Zampoli is a close personal friend of Donald Trump. He is currently the United States Special Envoy for Global Partnerships. In the first Trump term, he was appointed to the Board of Trustees for the Kennedy Space Center. Interesting how that needs to keep cropping up. So, close personal friend of Donald Trump. They met because he owned a modeling agency and they became close through that world. What was Paolo Zampoli's modeling agency renowned for, might you ask? Well, for getting visa situations for like 14 to 16-year-old very young Eastern European girls to come model in the United States. Model. What do we have that associated with in the Epstein world now? You may also recognize the name or character of Paolo from a few months ago, the headline of when he got his ex-wife deported by calling ICE on her and separating her from her 15-year-old son, essentially kidnapping him and becoming the sole custody person. They initially met when she came to Manhattan from Paris on Lolita's Express, Jeffrey Epstein's plane. That's how they met for the first time. She was 17, he was 32, by the way. It bears mentioning here that in tapes taken by author Michael Wolff, Jeffrey Epstein claimed that Melania and Trump slept together for the first time on Lolita's Express, his plane. So you better believe that in the very first hours of April 9th, when Amanda Ungaro was getting on Twitter, directly adding the First Lady's account saying, "Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? She has thoughts, and they are true. She has seen some things." Then goes on to say, "I will take legal action against you and your," I had to scribble it out, "husband. I have known you for 20 years. You know I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I am not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character." Clearly here implying that Melania tried to get her in on some kind of the sex trafficking ring, and she denied. "I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it is the last thing I do. I will go all the way. I am not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are, of who your husband is." Yeah. And then she's finding this old address that Melania did and saying, "Until you fall as a little chicken," which is just funny. And there's a TikToker on here. I'll find his @ and put it up here so you guys can see that it started making videos about this earlier, or maybe even previously to this. And she very correctly was saying the fact she's worried about what I know says everything. And yes, it does, because the fact that Melania, is a response to this is the only thing it could be a response to, in my opinion, gets up and does a completely impromptu address that allegedly Trump was not even aware that she was about to be making. Girl, you're scared. So not only is this girlhood dead, but she could be the reason that the Trump administration finally gets brought down. We need to get her back from Brazil. We need to get her testifying on the stand everything she knows about this woman and tangentially the President of the United States.
To Melania's dark past surfacing, a new interview between the Courier and that witness who Melania feared the most, that has now just hit the wire, and this could be deeply, deeply damaging for Melania. Amanda Ungaro gave an interview with the Courier, and she was asked, did Melania personally threaten you? If so, in what way and when? And Ungaro said, Melania felt threatened, and while she did not threaten me directly, she knows that I witnessed highly compromising interactions over the course of 20 years, referring to Paolo Zampoli, the boyfriend of Amanda Ungaro. Remember the video I made of Amanda Ungaro last week? The witness Melania feared the most. Melania and Ungaro knew each other for a very long time. Ungaro says that she met Paolo Zampoli when she was only 15 years old, is what she says. She went on to become Paolo Zampoli's girlfriend. Later on, they had a child together. She's, by the way, from Brazil. She's an immigrant from Brazil. Obviously, Melania from Slovenia. Paolo Zampoli ran a modeling agency where he would bring in young women and girls from Eastern Europe, Brazil, and elsewhere for his modeling agency. And then he would throw parties in the 1990s at the Kit Kat Club, where the models would meet wealthy Manhattan businessmen like Donald Trump, and Paolo Zampoli would play matchmaker, and then he would help the models expedite their immigration status through Einstein visas for the models like Melania Trump. If you know what I'm saying, that's how Melania expedited her visas after meeting Donald Trump. She got an Einstein visa. So the Courier, they've been doing a great job out there, and lots of reporting. I'm sure you know the Courier. They were able to interview Ungaro. I'm going to share with you some of this interview in a moment, but it should also be noted that as all of this is coming out right now, Melania is now the most detested first lady in America history by far. It's not even close. The American people hate you, Melania. The American people despise you, Melania. And American people know.
Okay, guys, I found something absolutely crazy, and I apologize. I'm still a little bit congested. Obviously, the video I posted yesterday, I filmed it before I got sick, and now I'm getting better. But I found something crazy, and I have to show it to you guys. Like, this cannot wait. So I was looking at old videos of Paolo Zampoli, enemy of the channel, you know, the modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States, who now works in our current administration and used his power under the current administration to have the mother of his child held in a ICE detention facility for months and deported wrongfully with no due process while they were involved in a custody battle, keeping in mind that the mother of his child, Amanda Ungaro, began being groomed by Paolo at 15 and was on Jeffrey's plane alongside Jean-Luc Brunel, her first modeling agent.
Amanda Ungaro, this lady, she's still exposing Melania. More videos are coming from Epstein files. She was her best friend. They shared everything together. So she's exposing her.
Melania, you in danger, girl. You know that friend that you had got deported? Well, she out of ICE custody, and apparently she on your neck. Melania, what was going on yesterday? You must have found out your friend got out of ICE custody. Now, before we can talk about that speech Melania gave, we have to actually talk about this article by the New York Times. Now, in this image seen here at the 2021 Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve party, the woman seen there goes by the name of Amanda Ungaro. She's Brazilian, and she was dating that guy by the name of Mr. Zampoli. Well, they were dating for decades. They had a child. He's about 17 years old now. When they broke up, she ended up moving down to Miami and getting married to a Brazilian doctor. She ended up being caught up in some sort of like scheme, like Medicare fraud or something like that, which again, people are starting to speculate that it came from the baby daddy. Well, after she had got arrested, he then called Donald Trump and had her deported to Brazil, her and her Brazilian doctor husband. And then he took custody of their 17-year-old son. The son asked to go to Brazil with his mom, but then was in Brazil, was like, oh, I'd rather come back to the States. So now he's with the dad. Now let's talk about what that has got to do with Melania. Apparently, that girl has been on a crusade because she is an Epstein victim. She stated that she had flew into the United States at 17 years old, on the Lolita Express, child, and she stated that that's when she had met Melania, and then Melania had then got introduced to Mr. Zampoli, or whatever you say his name. She dated him, and then she turned around and dated Donald Trump, referring to Melania. Yes, honey, they was all dating, if that makes sense. Melania was dating Zampoli, then she turned around and dated Donald Trump. That's how they met, okay? Now let's fast forward to Melania's little weird speech she gave trying to separate herself from the Epstein files, right? Apparently, Amanda Ungaro is out of ICE custody. And these are the tweets that she's been putting out since that speech. She said, hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years, and you know I was inside ICE, and you know what hurts after all this time? I stayed close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them. At events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know. And that's what brings us to Melania's speech. Melania must have got word that she got out of ICE custody. That's what I think. I think Melania found out, ooh, she out of ICE custody. Let me go ahead and separate myself before my best friend say something. Now, other people are speculating that Melania did this speech to separate herself from Donald Trump. Who knows at this point? But I think it has more to do with Amanda getting out of ICE custody. That's what I think it was. And Melania not helping her. But yes, child, this is a mess. Melania, you a mess. And you should have never helped them put your friend in ICE custody. That was foul.
Quando eu cheguei no avião, tinha mais ou menos quase 30 meninas no avião. Aí eu achei uma coisa muito estranha. As meninas eram mais parecidas com meninas estudantes.
President Trump's special envoy, former ambassador to Dominica, and self-proclaimed matchmaker to Donald and Melania, Paolo Zampoli, is in a whole heap of trouble. Paolo Zampoli just confessed on Italian television that he knew Epstein had underage girls. This aired last night on the Italian equivalent of 60 Minutes. Zampoli's lawyers tried desperately to stop it from airing. The host went on Facebook and said, "We're running it. It's in the public interests." So here's what Paolo said on camera.
Che aveva le ragazze, non sapevo, ma non erano le mie perché non erano neanche modelle.
He knew Epstein had underage girls. He didn't say suspected. He effing knew. He said they weren't models. He said they were very, very young girls, minors. He used the word massaggiatrici, masseuses. 2, he didn't say donne, women. He didn't say ragazze, girls. He said ragazzine, little girls. And he even used the word minorenni, minors. Jesus. Paolo.
We have breaking developments regarding Melania Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and their possible relationship, along with Paolo Zampoli and Amanda Ungaro. This morning, Courier released a new interview with Amanda Ungaro, who has made explosive allegations about Melania Trump, about her ex-partner, Paolo Zampoli, and more. Let's go through some of them. If you recall, Zampoli called ICE to get Ungaro deported. She was asked about that by Courier. Her reaction? Well, she said that she tried to reach Melania Trump through contacts, that Melania was aware of the situation but did nothing. Ungaro goes on to say, quote, her reaction was one of indifference regarding what was happening to me. It seemed to me that Melania, together with her husband, has a pact with Paolo Zampoli. Paolo constructed a false narrative, claiming that he was the one who introduced Melania to her husband. And not only do I know this isn't true, but everyone knows it isn't true. Now, both Melania and Zampoli have both denied it. When asked about Melania's relationship with Epstein, Ungaro says that everything made no sense. The whole thing felt strange, made no sense. It was as if their relationship had been pre-programmed, like a specific project that Paolo had meticulously architected, solely to claim the power and credit for having orchestrated their meeting. She went on to say that everything that is unfolding now was in fact part of their original plan. Now, Zampoli has denied being involved with Epstein socially or in business. Zampoli is currently a Trump official, by the way. Another one, can you characterize Melania's relationship with Zampoli? She says, Zampoli always portrayed himself as one who initiated the relationship. It always seemed to me that Paolo had some hidden leverage over Melania's life, something that kept her in his thrall. It was a business arrangement. It seems to me an agreement from which both parties stood to benefit. That's what Ungaro told Courier. I spent the past several weeks since Melania Trump came out and started talking about her relationship or lack thereof with Epstein and Maxwell researching this. and this adds a lot of color to what we've been able to find behind the scenes. I'll have more updates for you soon. Spread the word, follow along for more.
I think we were all surprised yesterday. I think that speech came out of nowhere. We were not ready for that, and we don't know why she even gave that speech. I don't think any of us thought she was an Epstein survivor. I think many people thought that she was introduced to Mr. President through Jeffrey Epstein, and that is obviously all allegations. We don't know for sure.
Let me just sort of emphasize what she said. Her words were a call on Congress to provide the women who've been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. And then she emphasizes it should be if they want to do this. And then at the end, she says, then and only then will we have the truth. What do you mean? What do you make of her emphasizing that only then does she think that we'll finally get to the truth?
Why do we need to testify to find out the truth? We have the files. Everyone's reading the same files. We have names of so many different perpetrators in there, and nothing's being done in America. There's absolutely no point for us. Listen, we are honored to meet her and talk about what we went through. I think that's, something that we can definitely do. But to tell our stories all over again, it's just re-traumatizing us all over again. And then nothing to be done. There's no consequences. There's no actions being taken. What is the whole point? We are very confused why we are even talking about.
What if the real story isn't about the claims that Amanda Ungaro is making, but who isn't reacting? If you didn't hear, Courier dropped the interview with Amanda Ungaro. After 20 years around Melania and Trump, she's saying that she witnessed compromising Epstein interactions. She's totally willing to testify before the powers that be. But I just can't shake the strangest part of all of this. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have pushed really, really hard for Epstein transparency. So if insider voices surface now, what's the holdup? There's no way we can just pay attention to what people say, but I think it's even more powerful when we recognize what they don't say. Don't you? Has anyone heard Massie or Ro Khanna say anything about Amanda Ungaro, or maybe even her Zambroni guy or whatever his name is, and how they're all involved in this? Because if you don't think that this is a big deal in the whole entire situation, I think there's a lot of people that are going to question whether you're really serious about this. So I'm asking you, do you think this hesitation's strategic, or is their silence the real signal? Tell me what you're noticing in the comments. I'm going to check them all out here in just a second.
Something just has not been sitting right with me about this Amanda Ungaro story and how she has ties to Melania and Trump and, of course, Paolo Zampoli. That guy right there has a history, and I just want to get into it for a minute, okay? So stay with me. So she's 15 years old when she comes over and starts talking to the modeling agency, right? And at 17, she's riding on Epstein's plane over here to meet with ID models that Paolo Zampoli, he owns. And he then also has ties to Lex Wexner. So there's this whole interplay between Epstein, Zampoli, and Lex Wexner that nobody's talking about. So when she's 17, she comes over and starts a relationship with Zampoli, who is 32 at the time, okay? Nothing to see there, right? And what we need to realize is this man is now in a place of power, okay? He's a UN ambassador. He was on a Kennedy Center board member, and he pushed to have Amanda lose their child and get deported back to Brazil. So we need to start asking bigger questions, like, what was happening with this relationship between Epstein, Lex Wexner, and Zampoli? Because they were all interconnected and related. And if you even remember, Epstein and Zampoli tried to buy elite models together in 2004 as a documented business partners. Okay? Why is nobody connecting these dots and asking these bigger questions? And I know why. Because it's powerful men that like to diddle little girls. And it's all okay because they're doing it, right? Right?
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.